Alright guys, so for about a year now I've had this snow stage 2 meth injection set up, basically sitting in my room collecting dust, as you can see here. But I think today I've finally got a half decent chance to finally finish installing it. So just quickly, that's the box as you can see there. So if you can see on this camera, these are some of the power increases that they post on the back of the box. Over here to a 426 cubic inch Hemi. So without the water methanol injection, the max power was 600 horsepower and the max torque was 590. And then when they were spraying with water meth, they made 664 and 640. So that's a pretty decent power increase just by spraying some water basically in your intake charge. And then we go over here to an 04 WRX. So this is more applicable because I'll probably end up doing this to my Forester as well. But without, got 285 horsepower, which is not that much, and 280, I'm guessing foot-pounds because it's American, of torque. And then spraying with the water methanol, they got 300 horsepower and 325 foot-pound of torque. So that's just a kind of, I don't know, benchmark for what you can expect to see with a water meth setup. You know, the main reason people run this is to minimise detonation basically. You pretty much don't want to experience it because it kind of detonates before the actual spark plug fires. So you get your cylinder temperatures basically that hot that they're detonating the mixture, and that's how you just blow engines to smithereens basically. So the reason why I got this is because, you know, as you all know, basically E85, you know, that does the same thing, that's a good fuel, but it is very hard to get, and I have run it before and the mileage is just crap. Like on my Forester, I ran it for probably 6 months or so. I was getting, if I was driving half decently, I would get 300 Ks to a tank, whereas before and after, when I went back to 98, regular unleaded, I was getting, you know, 400, 450, sometimes 500 on long drives. So the meth setup is basically a mixture. The best mixture I think is 51% water, 49% methanol. So that just gets kind of sprayed and atomized in the intake charge before it goes into the motor, which rapidly cools it, and it also adds octane to the motor. So that's my thinking, and I've seen a lot of good results. So yeah, what's in the box? Well, basically, as you can see here, this is the tank which it is stored in. They give you a little float valve which you wire up, which you'll see later on, which basically tells you when your fluid's low. You know, this can be used in multiple ways. It can be just like an indicator light, or what I'm probably going to do is have an indicator light on the dash and also somehow have it connect back to the ECU to then tell the ECU to switch back to the, you know, the kind of standard just unleaded petrol map. So it kind of retards the timing and whatever else is done by Benny the tuner. So that's that. Then you've got your pump. So this pump basically, you know, you got your feed side, which comes from the tank, and then this sprays up to your engine bay through this little injector. So, you know, ideally, if you have enough room in your engine bay, you'd want to mount both the tank and the pump in the bay, but because I'm pretty much chock-a-block, I'm going to run the tank and the pump both in the back. So obviously the tank needs to be higher than the pump, so gravity feeds to that, and then the pump pressurizes to the engine bay. So then this then gets mounted into the intake pipe just before the throttle body. Basically, I can't remember what the measurement is, I'll fill you into that later. And then you've got the heart of the operation, which is the control box. So this one has a boost input, so you can program it to, you know, you can see hopefully here, you can program it to start on a boost level and it'll ramp its way up full at another boost level. So, you know, you could set it to start spraying at say 4 psi and then hit full spray at about, I don't know, 10 psi. So then all the way from 10 to whatever you're running, you will have full spray of meth. And then of course you get some mounting bolts, there's some wiring. I think, yeah, there's the indicator light for the low methanol setup. So yeah, I've kind of been picking away at this over time when I've got a chance. So all I've got to do now is run some wiring and mount these somewhere. So I'll probably end up just tapping a thread into the pipe itself and then just sealing it in. So there's that. And there's also different jets.
So it's basically as simple as finding a suitable spot and mounting the pump with the 4 screws included. And then obviously mounting the tank, making sure that it is higher than the pump. And then just running the tubing from the tank to the pump. And of course making sure that it is flowing in the correct direction.
So as you can see, I've got the tank mounted, I've got the pump mounted, so it's got these little rubber feet with some self-tapping screws through them. And you know, the feed line, the high pressure line to the engine bay is hooked up, also the feed line from the tank. So that should be right. We'll find out soon enough. As long as the tank is higher than the pump, it should be fine no matter what. But we'll find out once we fire this up and test it eventually. But for now, the last thing to do in here is just figure out a way of getting the wiring into the cabin. So I'll probably, just like my battery cables and some other things, I'll probably just punch another hole and do a grommet in there and then feed the wires through.
So basically what I'm doing here is I'm putting a 2-pin plug on the main ground and power wire for the pump itself. And then I'm also doing the same with a smaller 2-pin plug on the low level sensor of the reservoir. So once that's all done, I'm just going to poke these cables through the hole that I've drilled in the bulkhead, which has got a little grommet in it, and then I can connect the rest of the wires up once I'm in the cabin doing all the wiring and the mounting of the actual module.
Alright, so after a bit of stuffing around, I've got all the wiring done and through the bulkhead here basically, and everything's mounted, so I'll show you what I've done. So you see the reservoir's mounted here, the line comes out there, feeds into the pump, and then pressurised out of the pump, down under the car and then up into the engine bay, which you'll see later on. I've also wired up the low fluid LED, so I've just done a little plug on that so I can remove it easy, which will go through the bulkhead here too at the back behind the seats. I've also done a plug here for the negative and positive of the pump. So I'm just about done back here. You can see while I'm here, this is what I've got back here. So I've got my onboard air compressor and tank for my rear airbags, battery obviously, and now my meth setup. So highly functional. So I guess the next thing to do is obviously tidy all this crap back up and put it back to how it was, and then we can continue on with the wiring inside the cabin. So we've just got a few wires like the positive, ground wire, and I don't even remember what they are. I'll tell you in a sec. Yeah, so basically your red is your 12 volt switched, black goes to ground, yellow is unused, and then green hooks up to your pump positive wire, so your pump's red wire, and then it also splices in the green LED. So I don't know if I'll actually get around to this today. I still have to liaise with Ben, my tuner, to see how I'm going to wire it up to the ECU. You know, there's a couple of different methods you can do. The control box actually will work by itself, but I'm just going to wire it up for some kind of extra gains and hopefully a bit of safe proofing for the motor as well, just in case anything does stop working. So, yeah.